Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. It's really good to see you again. How
Good
have
to see
you? Thank you. So, I know that last session you did your skills training, right? And you talked about emotional regulations. So in this session, we're going to go ahead and go over that a little bit more. We're going to talk a little bit about that pre-existing vulnerability, right? And I think that last session we talked a lot about that breakup, right? Which was what kind of landed you in the situation here, to have to seek out therapy. And so we're also going to talk about those feelings, right, that come up. And we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the techniques that you've been learning in the skills training group and that you've been applying, to
you.
kind of help you get through.
Okay.
Okay. So in your skills training, they talked about labeling these emotions, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So when you think about the breakup and what happened, on that night, what are some of the emotions that come up for you?
So, some of the emotions are like anger, sadness, guilt, and a lot of shame.
And a lot of shame. Tell me more about that.
I feel like there's a lot of shame because I don't know, I just feel like I'm not worthy. Um, I've felt rejected
You felt
and
rejected.
yeah, and I feel like a failure, I feel like I'm failing at life because I can't keep a relationship, and if I am in a relationship or have been, it's never a healthy one.
It's never a healthy relationship. So you find yourself kind of, failing at life because you haven't really been able to have a healthy and sustainable relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at my sister who has been through the same upbringing as me, has had similar experiences, and she's successful and married
Mhm.
and with somebody provides like this safety and love for her, and I haven't experienced that.
You haven't experienced that. Yeah. So, I mean, even though, people do kind of sometimes go through the same situations, it's also very possible that it's not always the same. Do you feel like something is different?
Well, yeah. I think the main difference is who she is committed to,
Mm-hmm.
who married to, because I mean, her husband, he's never been abusive in any way, shape, or form. And on the contrary, he's always provided safety for her. He's always made sure that, she knows that she's protected, that she's safe, that she's loved. And I mean, I guess now that we're talking about it, I realize it's not realistic to compare myself to her situation when she hasn't been with someone like my ex.
So, on one hand, it sounds like you really, want what your sister has. You want that healthy relationship. And in the other hand, you realize that, you know, the partner that she's with is completely different from the individual that you were dating and how he treated you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that. How was your ex treating you?
I mean, he was super verbally abusive. Um, he would always tell me that, you know, nobody is ever gonna put up with me, that I'm not I'm not worth the headache, I'm not worth the effort. Um, And he would always like, even before he broke up with me, like he would just threaten leaving me. Like it was just, he made it very, very clear that I'm not someone who's worth loving.
He made you feel like you weren't worth loving.
Yeah.
So looking back at that relationship now, after learning some of these skills that you've been learning in the skills training, what meaning can you bring out of this?
I feel like the main meaning for me at least is that um not only was that relationship and that person not good for me, it also didn't bring out the best parts of me. And if anything, that breakup needed to happen in order for me to make room and make space for the right person to come in and for me to get the help that I need.
So it sounds like, you're aware that this individual was not good for you. He didn't bring the best out of you, and he needed to kind of leave, right? The situation needed to end for you to be able to grow and get help yourself.
Yeah. And I wasn't gonna end it. So looking back now, maybe at that moment, at the moment I felt like my world was ending, but looking back now, um, it needed to happen. He needed to leave and pull the plug. And in a weird way, it just feels like my life started then rather than ended.
So your life started then rather than ended.
Yeah, because I was so consumed by this person that I lost myself.
You lost yourself.
And now I've been able to find myself and I'm learning, you know, um, how to show up for myself, how to take better care of myself, how to understand my emotions, take control of them, and also what I deserve. So, yeah,
It sounds like you've learned a lot.
I feel like I have.
There's a lot of improvement there compared to when you first came in.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first came in, um, yeah, I felt like my life was over.
So, Sarah, from a 1 to a 10, how much improvement do you feel you've done in regulating your emotions?
I feel like I'm like at a 6.
Out of 6.
Yeah.
Why not a 4?
Because I mean, for me at least, like I've been actually applying the techniques that I've been learning throughout our sessions and throughout the skills training. So that has helped me a lot with regulating my emotions.
What are some of the techniques that have helped you the most?
Um, I would have to say the self-soothing techniques. When we went over that, it looks different for everyone. So I picked the ones that were helpful for me. And it helped because, I mean, obviously, this is what I've learned throughout our sessions. You know, I'm not able to regulate my emotions. I get very consumed by them, and I feel like they have control over me rather than me have control over them. So with the self-soothing techniques, I've been able to regain some of that control and just take a moment, um, and not act like I'm not reactive like I used to be, or
You're
as
not
reactive.
reactive.
not as reactive. I still have my moments, but
Yeah. So it sounds like you've been really committed to applying these skills
yeah.
and you've seen some improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So you mentioned that, it's been helping with your reactivity. From a scale of 1 to 10, how have you been able to manage that reactivity?
I would say a 7.
A 7,
Yeah. I'm definitely less impulsive.
you're feeling less impulsive.
Yeah. I I'm not I'm not letting my emotions control me as much as I once did.
Well, why a 7 and not a 3?
Again, I think it's because I've been applying these techniques
Mm-hmm.
and I'm taking a moment to pause whenever there's a situation that's upsetting or I feel like, overwhelmed by my emotions. I've been just
Yeah.
applying what I've been learning.
So what I'm getting is that you've been a little bit more self-aware. You know, you've been applying all the techniques that you've been learning in the skills training. You've been working through those emotions. You've been taking a pause to really pay attention to these emotions and how they're coming up and why they're coming up. And then you're applying the skills which have helped you kind of lower that impulsivity, and really take a step back and do something or have more positivity, in
Yeah,
your day to day.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So Sarah, I mean, it sounds like you've come a long way from the first session to now. We're in our eighth session now. So I'm really looking forward to continue, our therapy sessions and see how much of an improvement you keep making. So for our next session, we'll just go ahead and go over some more of the trainings that you go through, and then we'll go ahead and keep in touch and set up another appointment soon, okay?
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
All right. You're very welcome. Take care.
You too.